The trial of Axel Ruiz. The courtroom was tense. Every seat in the gallery was occupied, and the air buzzed with whispers. In the defendant's chair sat Axel Ruiz, a name that sent chills through the city's underworld. A feared gangster, Axel had built an empire of crime, drug trafficking, extortion, and most notably, murder. The prosecution had linked him to multiple homicides, and today, justice was supposed to be served. The judge, Henry Callaway, was known for his strict rulings and intolerance for criminals. He had seen killers, thieves, and masterminds before, but none like Axel. The man sitting before him exuded a dangerous calm, as if the trial was nothing more than an inconvenience. As the prosecutor, Linda Marshall, rose to present her final argument, the courtroom door opened slightly. A bailiff looked in, but said nothing. Just outside, unseen by most, a shadow moved through the hallway. Linda's voice echoed. "Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is undeniable. Axel Ruiz didn't just order these murders. He orchestrated them with precision, leaving terror in his wake. He believes he is untouchable. But today, justice will prove otherwise." Axel smirked, leaning back. His lawyer, Daniel Reyes, adjusted his tie and whispered something to him, but Axel barely reacted. He was waiting. Then it happened. A loud crack rang through the courtroom, a gunshot. Gasps and screams followed as the judge fell back in his chair, blood seeping through his robe. Panic erupted. The bailiffs rushed forward, weapons drawn, but it was already chaos. Some dived for cover. Others tried to flee. Axel didn't move. His smirk widened. Security swarmed around the judge, calling for medics. Judge Callaway clutched his chest, struggling to speak. His eyes locked onto Axel. The source of the attack remained unclear. No weapon had been seen, no shooter identified. It was as if the bullet had materialized from nowhere. A perfect hit, a perfect warning. Linda turned to Axel. "You did this," she whispered, her face pale. Axel chuckled. "Did I?" In the distance, sirens wailed. The judge was alive, but barely. The trial was over before the verdict could be read. As Axel was escorted away, he glanced at the ceiling cameras and muttered, "See you soon, Judge." The game wasn't over. It was just beginning. Silent, the tension suffocating. All eyes were on Judge Henry Callaway, who sat tall behind the bench, ready to deliver his verdict. Across from him in the defendant's chair sat Axel Ruiz, a feared gangster accused of multiple murders. Axel had been untouchable for years. Witnesses disappeared, evidence went missing, and jurors were too terrified to convict him. But today, the prosecution had built a case too strong to ignore. It was finally time for justice. Judge Callaway took a deep breath. "Axel Ruiz, the court finds you—" Before he could finish, Axel moved. In a blur, he lunged forward, his hands no longer cuffed. A small, hidden blade glinted under the courtroom lights as it slashed toward the judge. Gasps and screams filled the air as the blade cut through the judge's robe, drawing blood. The bailiffs reacted a second too late. Callaway fell back, clutching his chest. Blood seeped between his fingers as chaos erupted. The jury scrambled, reporters ducked, and armed guards rushed toward the defense table. Axel turned, his cold, dark eyes locked onto the judge. He had waited for this moment. 2 guards tackled him, pinning him to the ground. The blade clattered onto the floor, stained with the judge's blood. Axel didn't resist. Instead, he laughed, a deep, chilling sound that echoed through the courtroom. Judge Callaway gasped for breath as paramedics rushed in. His vision blurred, but he could still see Axel grinning from the floor. Through the chaos, the gangster spoke, his voice low and taunting. "You should have sentenced me faster, Your Honor." The sirens wailed outside. The trial was over, but the war had just begun. The courtroom was in chaos. Judge Henry Callaway lay slumped in his chair, blood seeping through his robes. Gasps and screams filled the air as security restrained Axel Ruiz, the feared gangster who had just lunged at the judge with a hidden blade. Bailiffs tackled Axel to the ground, wresting the knife from his grip, but he didn't resist. He simply smirked, his cold eyes locked on the wounded judge. Judge Callaway's breaths were shallow, his vision blurred. Paramedics rushed toward him, but he knew he had only seconds. He gripped the arm of Linda Marshall, the lead prosecutor, and pulled her close. Blood stained her sleeve, but she didn't move. She needed to hear his last words. With a weak, trembling voice, he whispered something shocking. Axel isn't alone. There's a traitor inside this courtroom. Linda's blood ran cold. A traitor? Her eyes darted across the room, to the jury, the guards, the attorneys. Who was he talking about? Before she could ask, Judge Calloway's hand went limp. The courtroom fell silent. Axel let out a low chuckle from the floor, his smirk widening. Too late, he murmured. And at that moment the power went out. The real nightmare had just begun. The courtroom attack had left everyone in shock. Judge Henry Calloway was rushed to the hospital, barely clinging to life after the brutal knife attack by Axel Ruiz, the feared gangster on trial for multiple murders. At first, the motive seemed clear: revenge. Calloway had built his career on taking down criminals like Axel. But when investigators started digging deeper, the case took a shocking turn. The evidence was buried, hidden beneath years of spotless rulings and an untarnished reputation. Yet, one undeniable truth emerged. Judge Calloway had a past no one knew about. Decades ago, before he became a symbol of justice, Calloway had been involved in illegal activities. Old financial records showed unexplained money transfers. Witness testimonies hinted at connections to the very crime families he had sentenced over the years. Whispers of bribes, cover-ups, and even orchestrated assassinations began surfacing. Was Axel's attack really an act of defiance? Or was it something else? As prosecutor Linda Marshall and Detective Ethan Grayson pushed further, the truth became undeniable. Calloway hadn't always been a judge. He had once been part of the underworld, and the worst part? Someone powerful had tried to keep it hidden. But now, with Calloway clinging to life, the past was unraveling, and the people who had once protected him, they were ready to kill again to make sure the truth never came out. The attack on Judge Henry Calloway shook the entire city. A man once known for his unwavering commitment to justice now lay in critical condition after Axel Ruiz, a feared gangster, had lunged at him with a hidden blade during his own trial. At first, it seemed like a straightforward case of a criminal retaliating against the system. But as investigators dug deeper, the case took a shocking turn. One that no one saw coming. Old files, confidential testimonies, hidden transactions, secrets buried for decades began to surface. It turned out that Judge Calloway, the man who had sentenced hundreds of criminals, wasn't as righteous as everyone believed. Years ago, before becoming a judge, he had been involved in illegal dealings with crime syndicates. He had taken bribes. He had covered up murders. And worst of all, he had personally ensured that innocent men took the fall for crimes committed by powerful people. Now, everything made sense. Axel Ruiz hadn't attacked him out of mindless rage. He had done it out of revenge. The judge had once framed someone close to Axel, sending them to prison for life. As the truth unraveled, the definition of justice itself came into question. Who were the real criminals? The gangsters who operated in the shadows, or the judges, lawyers, and politicians who used the law as a weapon to protect themselves? Linda Marshall, the lead prosecutor, who had spent her entire career fighting crime, found herself standing in front of a courtroom filled with doubt, fear, and betrayal. If the judge himself had been corrupt, how many other cases had been tainted? How many innocent people had suffered? The city wanted justice, but now no one knew what justice truly meant anymore.